Okay, and turn.
Snug.
I know it's heavy, but we need to get it around this corner. Oh, hey there. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. If you have been listening for a while, listen, I appreciate you. I really, really do. In addition to providing informative and entertaining photography-related info on this show, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. Right now, Golden Hour and I are trying to get this awkwardly shaped cargo container up a flight of stairs, and I keep telling him we can do it if we just turn the container accordingly.
Snug. Snug, 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 snug. Snug, 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 snug.
Listen, I know you're shorter than I am. You are also 10 times as strong.
Yeah, snug.
You're welcome. Speaking of making turns, on this episode of the podcast, I interview photographer Justin Haugen about pivoting from a career in weddings into commercial photography. We discuss tips and ideas for photographers who are looking at making a change in their career. That conversation after the break.
Snug.
I'm not going to say it. Just turn it clockwise. Hey there, nerds. The Nerdy Photographer has a brand new website, and with it, we've created a resources page where you can find all sorts of things to help you in your photographic journey, from contract templates to website hosting to web design services to printing. It's all in there. Be sure to go out and check out nerdyphotographer.com/resources. That's nerdyphotographer.com/resources. Do you have your own website? Are you tired of dealing with slow loading pages and poor support from your current web hosting company? Consider switching to SiteGround, the top rated web hosting company that provides 24/7 support and super fast hosting speeds. SiteGround's platform is built on the premium Google Cloud infrastructure, ensuring top reliability, security, and speed for your website. Their fast network and storage provide optimal site speed and a high level of redundancy, so you can trust that your website will be up and running smoothly at all times. With SiteGround's ultra-fast server setup, your pages will load 30% faster on average, giving your visitors a better user experience and improving your website's SEO. And with hosting starting from just $199 per month, it's affordable for any budget. Plus, if you're not completely satisfied, SiteGround offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't suffer with a terrible web hosting company any longer. Make the switch to SiteGround and experience top-level support, super fast hosting, and a reliable, secure platform for your website. I spent years with a web hosting company that was absolutely terrible. My site was constantly getting hacked and support was nearly impossible to get a hold of. Since switching to SiteGround, all of those problems are in the past. Just visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/SiteGround or click the link in the episode notes to get started and begin enjoying faster, more reliable web hosting today. Let's do this.
All right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and with me today is photographer Justin Haugen. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
And before we get into the conversation, we're going to start with the dice breaker. It's a 20. What brand of, this is a natural 20. What is your brand of camera that you prefer, and why you get to evangelize about it for however long you want?
This is a loaded question. I've shot, Canon was my start for 10 years, Nikon for 7, and then now Sony for the last 4 or 5 years. And my real love is Fuji. I daily drive a Sony A1, but my actual, like, when I want to have fun and capture my memories or do personal work, I shoot with a Fuji X-T2 that I've had for 8 years now. It's good. That camera's going on almost a decade of life already. So I'm a big fan of Fuji. It's just something about it really resonates with me. It's like a bridge between the film and the digital world, and now it's vintage enough to feel like after almost 10 years, it feels just not up to speed with the modern camera tech. and there's something about it that just feels a little more deliberate and purposeful. Like I take my time when I shoot with it, and so that's my baby now.
Yeah, well, you're well rounded as far as experience with different camera brands. Um, yeah, there's a whole market for vintage digital cameras now. Like it's become a big thing. Gen Z really wants to like is gobbling up all the vintage digital cameras they can because they don't want to use their phones anymore.
I wish I still had it. In 2001 to 2003, I had my dad's Sony Mavica, and
Oh,
it was the 3.5 inch floppy. Slap that in
oh,
there and get
nice.
like 13 photos out of it.
I had the one.
Yeah.
I had the one that burned to a miniature CD.
Oh yeah,
That
that
was
was
the
high
one I
tech.
had. That was what I would do portraits with that because it was great for portraits. Like, and it was like a 2 megapixel camera, and like you
Hmm.
could get like great, like it was you get a great 8x10 out of it. But because it had a Zeiss built-in Zeiss lens, which was like really nice. But like the whole thing of buffering because it's writing to a little CD inside the camera at the same time, like it was not good. You couldn't do events with that. There was just things happen a lot way too quickly to be able to use that for events.
Yeah, I remember this thing having a mega zoom on it, like a 20 optical, and you
Yeah,
could zoom in pretty far. Like I used to photograph motorsport, and I'd be in the grandstands trying to get stuff on the track.
yeah, and it was all optical. It wasn't there was no like
Hmm.
digital interpolation. So, Justin, to give our listeners a little back, give our listeners a little background into what your photography voyage has been.
Every time I do a podcast, the voyage is longer and longer. And so, like, when I first did this probably 10 years ago, being on a podcast, it was a lot less to explain, but I'll try to wrap it up succinctly. So, I started photography in 2004, roughly. I was going to school here at the University of Arizona. I was doing graphic design, and I just had a need for digital images. I was really into photo manipulation, and I thought that's where my career was going to lie in editing photos and doing. I was really into commercial, like advertising was where I wanted to be. I wanted to make ads, like double truck ads. If I could photograph and edit and create advertising for brands, that's where I saw my interest in. And I was I had a friend who had gifted me, well, lent me the first digital Rebel camera, and I started shooting cars right away because you're 20 years old, you're into cars. Because I drove a Nissan Sentra, '98 Nissan Sentra, and all I wanted was like a much better car. So I was really into that scene. And my very first car that I photographed, I sent it off to a magazine where I had made some connections, and I said, "Hey, this might be a car you guys want to have come out to your studio in Huntington Beach and feature in the magazine." And I sent them a set of images that I photographed, all JPEG, no RAWs. I didn't even know how to process a RAW photo, and they said, "Sounds good. How's $200?" And I'm like, so my very
Right.
first, yeah, and I've got a collection of magazines of features I shot over the years for them, and that was my photography journey for up until like 2007, 2008. I was really into the motorsport scene, and I was getting featured in these magazines, and then picking up some clients here and there. I shot a wedding in like 2006, uh, and then after a while, I started realizing I wasn't making much money doing this. Driving to Phoenix or to LA to get $300 for, getting taking some photos. It didn't really offset my costs. So I was like net negative on everything. And weddings came up, and I started to realize I had a love for portraiture, photographing people, maybe live events, and then it kind of, I feel like the natural progression is weddings. So I got into the wedding scene. So I always had a day job up through 2013, and as the side gig, like, all I did was nightlife photography, events. Started getting a wedding workflow down, and in 2013 I was laid off from my job, from my former employer. I realized I didn't have a lot of other skills going. I never finished my bachelor's degree, and photography was kind of it. I used to go on walks with a buddy of mine at work, and we would talk about what would you do if if you lost your job. Like, we'd give it a go, like take a shot at this photography thing. Or he was a graphic designer, and funny enough, he got let go a few years ago, and he's doing freelance graphic design, and now I've been doing my business since 2013. full time. I went into wedding photography. I spent a year kind of in a deep depression because I was just turning 30. Started working on my website, got my SEO organically to #1 in Tucson for Tucson wedding photographers. And come 2014, the start of the year, I was getting multiple inquiries a day, and I booked out my entire year in the first month of January when people started planning their weddings for the year. So that was my journey up through starting it full time. Around 2019, my former employer became my new client, and so I have a PO with them, and they're one of my big accounts now. And I started to notice a transition in my work where I thought maybe I was more interested in the commercial corporate side of things. The ROI was greater for my time invested. The work was more regular, Monday through Friday. It wasn't as seasonal. We drop off in the summertime here for weddings because of the heat. And I just started to realize my passion for weddings was starting to diminish, and maybe I wasn't serving my couples as well as I had been with my initial enthusiasm for it all when I first started doing it. And so 2020 hits, pandemic, my business just crashes. 2021, I meet my wife, we start family planning, and then 2022, my daughter's born. And that's when I made the full shift into away from weddings. I think I shot my last wedding in 2022, and it would primarily commercial work, corporate events, and then I was doing some part-time work, customer service for Magmod, and then 23, 24 were like my biggest years of my career. I picked up a new client that was regular work in the mining industry, and up to now. And now my son was born this year, and here I am. It's mostly life is different now, so we can get into that. But yeah, that's kind of the journey in the last 20 years of photography.
I think that there's a lot that goes into what you just, it brings up a lot of things for me. Like, listen to that as somebody who's mostly a wedding photographer, been doing it for 25 years. There's something when you said like, I wasn't serving my clients. I think that's something that a lot of people could take a note from, because there are people out there who like, they feel that they have to keep going because of that's what they've been doing. And there's not a sense of like, oh, what I'm doing might actually be hurting my clients because I'm not in it anymore. And it's a thing that I come to probably every 4 or 5 years. Like, sit down with myself and be like, am I still in this? Do I still have the same measure of joy, I guess, would be like that. Mm-hmm. Because it's a tough business. It's a really tough business. And like you were saying, like I'm getting to a point just in as I'm getting older where I'm pulling back a little bit from the weddings and being more selective, because I want to spend more time with my wife. I want to spend more time with my friends. It's been 25 years of, oh, we don't see you all summer, because that's when the busy season is here. And, people would be like, oh, well, May to October, we're not going to see Casey. And there's this, like, what am I missing out on? And I'm sure as a father, you're like sitting there going like, hey, this was when you were planning, you're like, hey, like, what am I going to be doing? Am I even going to be around? Like, if I'm doing weddings? But I think people are afraid to take that step to move in a different direction. They feel like that they're somehow failing if they readjust their vision of what their photography business is.
Yeah, I think that I've always been a pretty well-rounded photographer, and I firmly believe if you photograph weddings, you can photograph any other genre of photography. You're built for it. There's a level of stress and craziness that just goes on, this frenetic energy that goes on with weddings, and you have to be this totem for your couples. I learned and stuff that I think there are milestones in wedding photography as a photographer, like when you hit your first 100, I think that's when you really have an understanding of what all of this is, like who you are as a photographer, what your style is, that you pretty much can take anything that's been thrown at you and respond to it. I had, like, in that first 100, I've had gear fail. I've brought the wrong gear. I've come with no memory cards. I made all those mistakes. And then your next 100 is really mastering the soft skills of client interaction, boundaries, like how available are you to your clients post and pre-wedding, when those hours of operations are. I started getting better about like that. My first 100, I was terrible. I had poor boundaries. I had a former partner, my ex and her son were living with me. That my wedding career was stepping all over my home life, and then the next 100 was like trying to figure out better boundaries, better space for myself. I feel like I didn't have any good. I didn't have hobbies. I was really 100% photography, and then since then, now with my family now, I have really good boundaries in place between like at this hour I'm not picking up the computer, I'm turning things off, I'm making dinner, I'm playing with my kids. Like I've I'm glad I peaked at the moments I did, because it opened up, made space for me to be a more present father when the time called upon me to step up in that way. So yeah, I think it's hard. Weddings are a lot, and they can consume your life. And I think everyone out there has had those moments of like, oh, I got to be up at 11 o'clock at night editing photos, or till 2 in the morning when after goes
No.
a laptop in your lap. I'm in that phase again right now because of my window of availability. But yeah, it is it eats up a lot, and then you're trying to figure out processes and how much pain point. Maybe it's time to employ some AI or an extra editor or an offsite editor to work on your stuff, and buy back time. You start looking at making sure that you're involved in the most important parts of the wedding process, and then maybe the things that are more menial you can hand off. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
Fine-tune the
finding
process.
those processes, finding things you can automate. I think the earliest thing that I found to automate, and this goes for any photographer, whatever you shoot, was getting a CRM, like getting a client relationship management software in place so that I could, like automate like invoices, or here's the contract, here's the like just and like instead of like filling out all this stuff every time I had a new inquiry or a new job, like something that was going to get booked, whatever, I could just go in there and be like, send them this. This is the invoice.
Mhm.
Like attach this invoice, whatever, blah blah blah, and like automating that process so that I'm saving myself hundreds of hours a year, and I can use that in different areas of my business instead of just going, um, instead of like running around trying to get it, and then finding like things like AI culling. For me, it's my first run through of stuff so that I can kind of get a look at it and go like, okay, yeah, these are the ones that definitely should go. And then maybe taking a look back, it depends on what type of shoot it is. Corporate event, totally different from a wedding. There's what do I want to keep? Do I want to keep this emotional photo that's not like technically perfect versus whatever, but it like gets me out of those like, oh, these are portraits of people with their eyes closed. Automatically getting like that used to take me the longest time with weddings. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I took 4 or 5 shots of each grouping or whatever, and like, which one does everybody have their eyes open in? Like instead of having to go in and look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, maybe there's 35 people in this shot. Like, who has their eyes closed? They can like cut that time out of there. Like, you spend more time serving your clients, whatever type of photography you're doing. You mentioned making mistakes, like like in the first 100. Uh, I'm curious, like, what's a moment in your career that felt like at the time it was a major mistake or a failure?
I remember this is probably in my Canon 40D days, and shooting in a dark church. And I always thought like you just had to do off camera flash. So that's always been my thing. And I remember this is like in the Salsi buff Alien Bs. I probably had a couple Alien B800s with some their lithium battery packs. So you're bringing a studio strobe connected to a battery pack on a couple light stands. And I was having misfires. I didn't have the right triggers. Things were just going bad. And I just remember like group of people, just a whole family portraits, everyone looking at me, waiting for feedback, wanting to know if things were going, like what they should be doing. And I'm fumbling with the lighting, and then I'm just struggling through this, and the results weren't looking great. I didn't know what I was doing with the lights in terms of placement and ratios and fill and key light. I just, put two lights on the sides and just blast them with light. That'll be better than nothing, right? And I think that came to mind right now, and it's like a repressed memory, and now I realize it's a core memory of like what I was doing, and that's I feel like that's a stumbling block where you realize, oh, I gotta be better at this. Like there needs to be, and again, soft skills. I'm going to talk a lot about soft skills because it is managing client expectation, their comfort, their energy, making them feel like that you're their capable hands, and then on my end I'm fumbling all of that. And so I think it's just one of those things, you build up confidence with the gear, with the process, with the people skills, and then now if I do the same, if I have the same scenario now, I'm in control of everything. And that's just something that you doesn't come without experience, and going through the lumps of doing it. And I used to get social anxiety from being in public spaces, which is crazy because I'm such an extrovert and I love meeting new people. But I remember feeling so uncomfortable, anxious, my stomach would hurt. I wasn't in the public speaking, and weddings triggered all of that. And I think exposure therapy is really the best therapy, is to continue to put yourself in those positions over and over again until you realize like you have to get through this. And now I can. I used to get anxious from cocktail hour, especially at corporate events, is interrupting people politely to get a group picture while they're stuffing their faces and having a drink. Now I couldn't be less anxious about that. Like I walk up confidently, insert myself, get in, get out, and they, get their pictures and we're done. And those kind of things are just, it's exposure. You have to keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. Tend to be a little bit of an introvert. So it's like going up to people, I don't have quite a problem with it at weddings, but like corporate events, like you said, like people are sitting around talking. This is not like necessarily like a celebration gathering or whatever, and people might be literally just getting to know each other for the first time or whatever, and you're like walking up and going like, hey, can I get a photo? And then you can get a really like, I had to overcome a lot of fear there as far as like walking up to people. But now same thing, it's you do it enough times and you learn the kind of like coping mechanism in your mind, which is like they know you're just doing a job. They understand that you're doing your job, and just be like nice about it, and just be like, hey guys, do you mind? And if you do mind, no problem, like that sort of thing. But it's I don't know, the what you were talking about, like having that experience with the lights not working or whatever. This is like, I always try to tell people that you have to take the time to practice and learn and understand your gear and all those things, so that you can, again, serve your client better. But it's also because people don't want to sit around and watch you figure things out. And especially when it comes to corporate stuff, weddings, I think there's a little bit more forgiveness maybe, but like corporate stuff, it's like, this is like, we're not here to like, we're spending a lot of money with you, and you might not get a lot of time with certain people, similar to weddings. Like, but if the VIP is coming in, if you're getting like the CEO of the company, you have 2 minutes with them total, and you've got to get a portrait of them or something. And you're sitting there fumbling with your lights. They're going like, well, we don't have time. We're going to be completely off schedule because they don't have time with you. And it's something about, somebody posted a video about this recently that I saw, which was with when it comes to like VIP clients or people who are coming in, like you have to have that all set up. You've tested it all out. Your settings are right. But why don't you do that for all your clients instead of just like the VIPs? If you have somebody coming in for portraits, you got to make sure that you've tested out all that lighting. Or if you're like showing up to a wedding, like this is what I used to spend like part of the cocktail hour was like setting up my OCF for, off camera flash for the reception, like making sure it's all set up, and like having my assistant or having some cater waiter come over like, hey, can you just stand here so I can check how this lighting is going to look? And so that when everything starts happening, you're ready to go.
weddings or the day of the job is not the day to be workshopping, new concepts. And definitely, I realize like through practice, it's better I work better when I have tested myself in those situations or lighting situations beforehand. So I try now to be better about like if I'm going to be trying something new or different, that I maybe do a spec shoot or trial. There has to be practice. There needs to be more practice, and or that when you're on a shoot that's low pressure, that maybe that's the time you try out a new lighting recipe, and not you've got all your shot your meat and potatoes, and the client should be happy with what you've done. Then maybe there's some time for a trial at the end of all that.
Yeah.
So I always try to find room to play when there's time for it, push a little bit more.
Yeah, when you have like a little extra time, you're like, oh, we got this out of the way. I know we've got our safety shots or whatever. Like, we're good. You'll be happy with this, but let's spend 5 minutes doing something else. Your turn from weddings and into like more focusing on corporate stuff is, fairly recent. It's in the last 5 years. What do you think was the moment that you thought like, okay, I've got to turn the corner. I've got to rebrand, because it really is like you're going from something that's very specific to another thing that's like whereas events are kind of related. It is a turning point. Like some people don't, I think, don't realize that you have to put yourself out there in a different way when you have a whole different clientele. It really is rebranding yourself. Like I'm focusing on something entirely different than what I was doing before.
And I think I had an eye on it for I've been talking about it for well over a year. Rob and I, Rob Hall, who you've has his episode ran already?
Oh yeah, it was a while ago. Rob was on a while.
I'll have to give his a listen. But yeah, Rob and I had been talking about it, especially on our podcast. We were talking about transitioning, and now it's funny, we're both away from weddings pretty much entirely and completely immersed in more corporate marketing minded type work. And I had an eye out for it for a while. I've been talking about it, and then I realized I wasn't booking Gen Z weddings, and that was starting to bother me. I'm like, why am I missing this audience? It's like the emerging wedding class is coming up, and I'm still booking right tightly within like a 5-year range of my age. Like I'm 42 now, and I'm like, that wedding market's not going to be as prevalent as Gen Z at some point. I know everyone's getting married later, but that's the next emerging wedding scene. So I didn't feel like I was doing anything that resonated with Gen Z. I feel that I see wedding trends now. And I have friends who are very successful in weddings still, and they're going to book regardless. Maybe I didn't have it in me to do that work, and I feel like I'd always had corporate work, corporate events. That stuff was on my in my workflow throughout the year. Like I was booking those kind of things. So when I got the contract work with my former employer, that's when I was like, okay, they're driving the majority of my business. I can start to pull back from weddings. So there was a bit of a transition there. And then when I locked in my bigger client, and they kept me thoroughly busy, and I realized I wouldn't have any room for weddings. So 2022, I was like, this is it. So every wedding booking that started coming in 2022, every inquiry, I was able to refer it out and feel myself kind of drift away from it. So it was like a turning point, so much as like a slow transition out of it.
Were you afraid though? Because like that, I'm just curious. Like you get those clients. I've had that moment where I get a new client and I'm like, oh, this is great. Like this is what this fills up in my schedule, whatever each year. But like were you afraid of making that turn? Was it like a scary moment for you to be like, okay, well, this thing that I've been doing, that I've been successful at, I'm kind of drifting away from that?
The work became so lucrative very quickly that I was able to start making different financial planning decisions for my family and I, and afford the expenses to like make room for all this. Like we had a full-time nanny. everything was in place because of the work and frequency of the work. So there was no fear there. I do have a bit of a cautionary tale leading up to this year, because I identified like the majority, like 90% of my business was coming from two clients, and I knew that was going to be a problem. Like, I have to diversify, and now I'm pretty much not doing any work with the second company that was my biggest account for 2 years. And so, and I knew that was going to be a possibility. They lost their marketing director, who I was very close with, and new people come in, and new people usually bring in new people, or the relationship change. I know I keep I'm being told that I'm going to be involved as a new phase of their business is about to occur. But right now there's nothing I can count on from them. So I'm in a phase now of, I'm in my dad era. Ever since my son was born, my wife was on maternity leave for the first half of the year. She returned to work last month. I'm in a space now where I spend more time with my kids. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. It's my daughter was going to camp. I was with my son all day, and then my daughter just started today. Was her first day of school, so we dropped her off at preschool, and now after this I'll be with my son. So I'm in a new phase now where my daughter's going to be going to school Monday through Friday. I'll be with our son more. I'm actually trying to figure out, like, what is this going to look like with my son? Like, because now I've got a day to fill, days to fill with a 6-month-old. And I'm trying to figure out, like, maybe there's some kind of magnum opus in here where I can do something with my son, still be involved in photography, and maybe there is like the photographer dad kind of like angle where maybe this is something I can share this story with, or share this process or the work that I'm doing with my son being involved in my life so heavily. So I'm in this different space now where I always knew this about for myself, that the way my work was structured and the way I wanted to be working someday was to be a business owner, to have more flexibility and the way I spend time, and that I could be a more present father. And so I think right now my biggest joy is that I get to be this Swiss Army knife in our family, in our home. My wife has the 9-to-5 corporate job, and it affords us a lot of like healthcare and important things. It covers a lot of that stuff. And right now I'm basically running my business one-handed. Like I do stuff on my phone. I try to get whatever time on the computer when my kids go to sleep. And I'm actually not having a terrible year. Any other year, this could be a high watermark year for me. But because the last 2 years set a level of expectation a lot higher, I'm struggling with the drop off in frequency at work. And it's just, I'm in a different space right now. And I'm leaning into the being available to my family. I'm happy about that. And now I'm trying to think, like, what's this next phase? I'm transitioning now into maybe setting up the next chapter of work. And I want to really set up for a bigger year in 2026.
Yeah. So balancing, and this is something you talked about earlier, but work-life balance, like in setting boundaries and figuring all of that stuff out, is something that I had a terrible time doing. When you mentioned earlier, like, oh, I got to be up at 11 o'clock. I was up until like 2 o'clock sometimes, like editing those things. And then you realize, like, oh, this is A, unhealthy for me. And B, there are things other than work in your life. And you want to take some time and you want to enjoy those moments while you can, especially if you've got a newborn. Pretty much, it's like, you want to spend some time experiencing that instead of like just working all the time, and enjoy those moments, because as we know as photographers, like those the moments are fleeting, and we're really you want to be able to look back on that and be like, I was present for that time in my life, and not, oh, I was really not there. I was working. And it's like it's I do not have children, but I think that one of the things that really stuck out to me was that, in even just my family and friend group, how not present I was during like whole portions of the year, because I just wasn't available or wasn't around. I was just like working myself all the time, and not prioritizing my I don't know, I don't want to say real life, but like my non-work life, and finding those types of balances in yourself, and as you mentioned earlier, setting good boundaries, because there was there was a time when I worked for another studio for a little while, like helping them out with just managing their studio, and um, I got a call from one of their clients at like 11:30 at night, and for some reason I answered it, and I think that was the moment that I just sort of decided, like, wow, I really have to not do that, because it was just like the mother of a bride who was like wanted something changes made to like an album design or something, and I'm like, it's 11:30. First, I was like, why are you calling me at 11:30 on my cell phone, which I don't not entirely sure how you got the number, because, but why are we having this conversation? And I said, like, happy to discuss this tomorrow during regular business hours. And she's like, well, why can't we talk about it now? And I'm like, because I'm going to bed. That's why. This is not I'm not in front of your stuff. It's a lot to ask. And then I said, you know what? Part of this is my fault. I answered. But in the future, I need to, and that's when I really turned the corner as far as like saying to clients, this is when I'm available to you. You can call me, like, if it's for wedding clients, if it's the week of your wedding, there's no, like, if something's happening and you really feel like it's an emergency and we need to talk about it, I will pick up the phone, or answer you. You're going to have to text or call me, because I'm not necessarily like checking my emails, at off hours. But everybody else, like, there's a time cutoff, at night. Like, I want to spend time with my wife, and when we have dinner together, we're going to, like, this is our time to connect and be with each other outside of work. So kind of going back to the rebrand, what were the elements that you changed as far as, like, client facing material? Like, was it visual? Was it like your philosophy about the work, the approach to the work? What were you like? How did you change the presentation of your business?
And it's still a work in progress right now. I've got a new website launched as of late last year. That was a rebrand where I wiped all my wedding work off the site. Finally got up new work that I've been doing with clients, which is rough too, because I've got my two biggest works, which are two biggest clients, which represent 5 and 2 years of my work, are the biggest holes in my portfolio, because I have NDAs signed with both clients, and I can't share any of the work. To share the work on my website represents an endorsement of a third party vendor, and they don't do that. So that's the only downside to the work that I've done with those two clients, which really opens up a big part of my portfolio if I could share it, because some of it's very niche work, some of it's very technical. There's time lapse work, there's drone work, there's I did a 1 year manufacturing build time lapse with 3 cameras. Like, I can't even show that work. So there's stuff that I'm very proud of. I did some of the best work of my career, and I can't even show it. So I that's a bummer. But yeah, the rebrand was the website, and that's still calling to me right now. I need to spend more time with it, and add work that I've done recently, fine tune the messaging, show more of the niche stuff. So that's one thing that I want to tend to more. But as it stands, I think it's a good representation of my ability, the quality of the work, and the messaging is more business oriented. I talk about the different technical things that I can do. I think the strengths I have are my communication ability, managing client expectation. Like, all that stuff is very voiced pretty well on my site. Then my Facebook or my Instagram was a big rebrand. I archived all the wedding work, so all the wedding work is gone, and I left only work that's more relevant to brands, influencers, companies, marketing type based work, and then personal work. So that's now what's showing on my Instagram. I could probably do an audit and get more focused with that. My goal is to post more regularly on there, and then LinkedIn. I'm trying to be more regular on LinkedIn and share more of my my work life on there, because I think that's a better space. That's the best space for what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I've really like transferred a lot of the energy to LinkedIn for like the corporate and business stuff, because that's where they're looking for people, is not, or they're interacting. They're not on Instagram looking for a photographer for their business.
Yeah.
Because in the one of my best friends, we've known each other for almost 30 years, and he went from doing weddings and portraits to like being a full-time corporate photographer in this kind of a similar way. Like he realized he was having a child. They found out, and he was like, you know what? I need to be more stability here. And as he refers to it, he's like, I shamelessly followed the money to corporate stuff. And he's like, most of the time, nobody sees the work that I do. Like it's not that it's just not like posted. I can't post it on Instagram, or I can't put it in my portfolio. Like the client doesn't even make it public. It is solely an internal thing. So that's one of those things that, for rebranding became a really difficult, thing to do, because like you're not, you said, you're not able to put that section of your portfolio out into the world and help it, reap the rewards of, of that work, like putting it out there to people, like get some attention and have more people come to you. It can be a very, I don't know, harrowing thing. Like I know that in my own, I keep my wedding and my corporate brand separate, and that's there was time when I had been doing like similarly, I had been doing like corporate stuff throughout my career, just wasn't the focus of things. And then like when it became like, oh, need to diversify, because 2020 came around and all the weddings just went like we're gone. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I managed during that year to get a few corporate gigs, and I was like, okay, you know what? I need to put more focus into this. But it was that fear of like, I don't have the greatest new stuff available here. It's like I've got some old things, but like my lighting, like those things, like not feeling necessarily confident enough about it. Like, oh, I've got some stuff where, my business headshots were not the best lit, like for where I was at the moment. And I'm like, it's the working towards like, okay, and I've got to build up this portfolio. And that part felt very frightening, in the sense of like, okay, I'm putting myself out there in this realm, whereas I felt confident in, other forms of portraiture, and not that I couldn't do it work wise, but like, this is what I've got in my, in my book of work. I felt up to my abilities at that time when I was like trying to add more of it. That can be like a real stumbling block for people. It's like feeling like, how would you approach that feeling now that you, like you said, you've got these two huge clients who you're not able to use that work? How do you then go into your portfolio and be like, okay, what am I going to focus on here?
I've done spec shoots where I could fill in gaps in my work. So like, I feel like my strongest skill is marketing and company, like public facing type images that are more environmental. Like I love photographing people at work, or portraits in their place of work, rest, or play. Like that's my favorite type of portraiture. Like if I could just shoot creative environmental portraits of people all the time, that's all I would do. Just, yeah, oh, you work in a cool place, like, yeah, bring me there, let's do some portraits. That's my strongest suit. And then so I've done spec work where like I had access to a co-op office space, and I had some friends come through in business attire, and we spent a day, setting up, testing new lighting setups. I tried gear that I wouldn't normally use. I was trying to really polish the work and use it as an example of like what I could do. Like, maybe this is C-suite portraits for, Fortune 500 company kind of stuff. So that's where, I'll spec shoot it, but right now my time is limited. I don't even know if I could put a spec shoot together in the next month if I wanted to, but because it requires a full. I did it like I would load out. I almost even hired my assistant that I normally work with to come help me, but I did it all by myself. Lugged all the gear around, loaded the car up, yeah, and yeah, it I've thrown money at spec shoots where I had to rent gear, or so like that. I can fill gaps in my portfolio by creating the work, creating the ideal client and the circumstances for what I wanted to shoot. And, I'm just, and I'm not shy about trying to get what I want. So like if I need a location, like, yeah, I just need to make a phone call. I need to talk to people, and you just never know where you could find yourself unless you put yourself in those situations and ask and try to see what you can do with a camera. I find a camera as a passport to experiences and locations that I never had access to before. It's always been that way for me with photography. So, have a camera will travel. It definitely get you into some places you didn't expect yourself.
Yeah, it's like what's the worst they're going to say? No, like just understanding that that's the worst that can happen. Like asking is not an issue. So another like taking this a little further, like for photographers who are feeling like stuck or afraid to pivot into a different direction, what advice would you have about like kind of starting over or redefining your business?
I think a clear path forward. Like I think you need to define what success looks for you. You need I need a 1 year plan, a 5 year plan, maybe financial targets. Maybe it's like right now I'm going through a I don't know, maybe it's because I'm going through fatherhood and there's a lot of stuff happening politically, even not just on a national level, but on a local level. And then I'm seeing things through the lens of fatherhood, having a family, and the issues that matter to me as a parent, and finding spaces for my family that are wholesome and that bring value to my kids' lives. Like there's a huge Venn diagram of all these things that are starting to intersect, and I'm like the intersection of all those things, and I'm trying to figure out like what does my client list look like in the future? Am I happy with the clients I'm working with? Do they represent my values? Do they represent all those values? Do I feel proud? Like I admittedly like there's work I've done for clients I have where I don't feel I'm aligned with their mission, and and in certain spaces I may not mention that client in my client list because I don't think it represents who I am. It doesn't represent my values. So all this is happening inside of me right now, and it's giving me a lot to think about on my vision board about in 5 years, who are the kinds of clients that I'm working with? What kind of maybe it's philanthropy, maybe it's like I'm really interested in the idea of joining um, boards that are part of organizations that help families and children, especially locally, of course. And I'm trying to see like what is that? Where is this Venn diagram now occurring of all these things meeting in one space for me? Like, can I work with the clients who I'm excited to work with? Can they represent my values? Can they help me further my growing mission to like benefit families and in my community? So sorry, I've deviated from
No,
where this started, but I think people need to sit long and hard, think hard about what their values are, what their goals are, what does success look like, and what is the viability of commerce and income that can come from it, and can you brand yourself and aim your business in that trajectory? And that's where I'm at right now. I'm having a hard time with capitalism right now. So here, I'll give you a good example of like values that are kind of bothering me, that are at forefront of my mind. Like we just had like a huge Amazon was trying to build a data center here in Tucson. And we live in the desert. We're always experiencing a drought, and they were going to have access to potable water, drinkable water, until a 18-mile pipeline was going to be connecting them to a non-potable water source. They're going to be using like 10% of our city's daily water usage to cool this data center for AI. And our local government went through a lot of lengths to make sure they hid all the most important information from the public. And then through some city council meetings, the people showed up in force to talk it down, and now it just got voted out of. And after the land had already been approved for annexed for sale from our county supervisor, so there was a lot going on locally. There was I wondered to myself, like, oh, like, could I see myself doing a time lapse photo project for a client like that when I'm like diametrically opposed to it?
Right.
So those kind of questions come up in my work and in my life. Like, I'm like, man, if I had an opportunity to do that work, like, that's a high profile client of the highest caliber in the realm of like commerce that I want to be like making money off of, but it's completely opposed to my values. Like, yeah, that bothered me so much. It's been a big thing in our household. A lot of our conversations have been around it, and now, but yeah, so that's an example of who I am as a person. Could it conflict with who I am as a businessman? Can both those things exist in the same Venn diagram?
Well, I think that kind of brings up my next question, which is like, how has the definition of success changed for you? Like, is it about like balancing those, like you're saying, balancing the financial with who you are as a person, whether that's you're being a parent, being a partner to someone, just your place as a citizen of the world. Like, is that like, how has that changed over these like reinventions of the business?
Right now, my idea of success in this current moment is survival. It's that my needs are met, my family's needs are met, that we're all fed, we're all clothed and housed. That's like my biggest goal right now. Those needs are being met. Um, if I could, and then also that my business is still sustained. However, like, success for me moving forward, it is a target. It is I have ideas that my business could be making 5 times more than what it is now, and it doesn't necessarily hinge on me being the key point of labor in all of this. That maybe I like the idea that maybe I can run a more of a agency minded type of business where I can lean into other people's talents and skills and availability, and that we could build something that serves a client base in town while also aligning with who with our values, with the clientele that we work with. And I've seen other people do that. I've seen other businesses do that too. There's an agency in town here where they're completely aligned with their political spectrum, with their client base, and it's it's inspiring to see that. And so I guess I have this delusion in my mind that capitalism and um, philanthropy and family can all coexist. But I'm probably like I said,
I
delusional.
don't know that it's delusional. I think that there's also a sense of like, you have to strike that balance in a way that you're comfortable with, and in understanding where like those lines are truly drawn, and knowing, like, because there have been times when I've got same thing. Like, oh, here's a lucrative job opportunity, but I've said no because I'm like, man, I couldn't live with myself for promoting this, and they just can't do it. And just said, like, I'm not the right photographer for you. Um, but there's that's in the back of the head. There's the, young photographer in me who's like, you got to take every job that you get offered. And but you know what? Like, there comes time when, sometimes I've had very famous portrait clients who turned out to be awful people, which I found out about later and in the news. And you're like, okay, taking that person out of the portfolio and never speaking of them again. That's even though that was may have been a lucrative job. There's also like, now there are times when it comes up and it's like, I already know that they're not the person I want to be working with. So that, it's making that decision and knowing what you feel comfortable with, where that puts you. Sometimes you get into some gray areas. Sometimes it's not gray at all. Sometimes it's totally black and white. So wrap up question. Looking back, do you feel that like not necessarily the word failure, mistakes, or whatever challenges you faced have given you some clarity as far as like changing the direction that you wanted to go and how you want to present yourself to the world?
Sorry, can you rephrase that, the beginning part?
Do you feel that like, I don't know, challenges, mistakes, I don't know, not necessarily mistakes, but like situations that you've been in, like where things didn't go the way that you expected them to go. Uh, Again, I think challenge is probably a better word, has helped shape and clarify the way that you've decided to present yourself in like going in a different direction and rebranding.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything I touched on previously is like a build up to where I'm at now, and it's just like it's still a work in progress. I feel I'm having all these conversations with myself, with my wife, with close friends about like what mark I want to leave on photography. Which in a world with so much noise right now, social media being the number one culprit, but there's just so much noise right now to be seen as a photographer, just based off the merit of your quality of your images is just it feels a little hollow to me, and I want to do something like right now. No, like there was a phase in my career where my work was being recognized in my peer group in my amongst our social media like for an aesthetic, which was probably riding the wave of other of like people I was inspired by. And then now I don't really feel like I'm bringing anything interesting to the table in terms of what my work looks like as far as the quality or aesthetic of it. That I think there's just too much, especially if you consider like off-camera flash being an aesthetic. It was 10 years ago, it was cost prohibitive. It was a harder space to enter because there was a learning curve, and there was less information on it as a whole. And now in 2025, I see such a deluge of work out there of just everybody's, you get one big softbox and a light, and you can, there's just an aesthetic that's happening now where it used to be naturally lit work. This light and everything was popular because it was I think it was a gear restriction. It was people who didn't know lighting.
I think both,
And so,
honestly, both
yeah,
dark and moody and light and airy were both responses to people's like inabilities to like expose properly.
yeah, to take that leap. And then now flash photography is everywhere, and the work is, it doesn't stand out to me. So what I'm doing isn't really interesting and doesn't bring anything to that conversation. So I'm not doing anything technically or skill wise that really invites that conversation. Like I feel like I know a few people who do, like Jason Vincent. If you ever, I don't know if you've had him on the show. Have you had
Not
Jason on the
yet. I
show?
want to. Like, I've been
Oh,
trying to. Like, that's been a someone I've been messaging. Sometimes it takes a while to get people's
yeah. I
schedules
can give him
to.
a holler. Maybe he would want to come on. But Jason's he's a wizard. Like that guy can light his way out of an empty room with a couple, some gels and a couple and a flashlight. Like
He
he'll
has an
figure out a
incredible
way.
vision. Like, and
Mhm.
like quickly. Like I can go if
Yeah.
I'm able to sit somewhere, I could probably go like, oh yeah, I do this. But he just has like I don't
Mhm.
know. Like there's something. You're right.
Yeah.
He just like
He
walks in and goes, oh this.
Yeah, he's got a third eye for it, and I love his ability to do that. Do that. So like I just feel like I don't bring that to the conversation. So now it's like, what can I do that is going to bring something meaningful to photography? Like, what's my mark? Like, can I? And so now it's got me thinking more long term, more meaningful thought out work, maybe work with a vision, with a purpose. So I've got a personal project I've been working on. It's called Trades, and I want to photograph people where they work, particularly local business owners. So I've done everything from knife makers, two bladesmiths, pod people, and a woman who's made pottery her life's work and has taught it, still teaches it. I've done jewelry makers, like just a gamut of people, and I want to keep going and seeing where that project takes me. And I've got like almost 20 people done as of a year ago, and my goal is 50. I would love to get to like past 50 and start thinking about maybe this could be a book, maybe this could be a gallery showing, featuring all the people who came, who were part of the project. So that's one thing. I've got another thing in my head about maybe something that represents me. I'm half Korean, half American, so I have a project in mind. I've got a name for it. I've got a thought of like where that could take me. Um, and maybe that says something about myself and the people I'm photographing. And then, so these are the kind of things I'm thinking about, like where can I use my camera to serve somebody else? Can it tell someone else's story? Can it represent someone who's underrepresented? Can it shed light on the community? That's where my thoughts are on photography, and so I'm constantly like having these conversations about where what can photography do for other people, and because I'm not, like I said, not bringing anything new to photography, especially in terms of technical aspects of it and skill. So can I say something rather than show something?
Well, I think that way you're like, it's listeners are probably tired of hearing me say this, but like the thing for me is always emotional content trumps technical perfection. And I think what you're maybe discovering or finding out or delving into is what is the soul of your work as opposed to the technique of the work,
Mm-hmm.
and using the techniques that to just bring out more of the substance underneath. Because I find that for me, maybe this is different for you, but like the technique of things, with JC, can't remember, JC Carey, talk about like, like I teach process, not recipe. And so that how to like do the things in your, that you want to, how to use the lights, and how to use the technical elements, or whether it's natural light or off camera or whatever, to create the vision that you have. And I think that there's this sense of it, just from what I'm getting from you, that you're looking for more of the emotional weight. And what you can offer is of your perspective on things. What you can offer is shedding light on people or subjects that most people don't pay attention to. Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know if you can confirm or deny that. Like, it sounds like what you're discussing is like taking on more of the emotional underbelly of the work, as opposed to like technique.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm in this ever shifting phase of my life. Like I'm always changing. Like the work I did in my 20s and 30s and now 40s is always going to be different. The kind of clients I'll work with, the kind of things that motivate me and get me out of bed, and then of course like all these other aspects of my life that are pulling at me, namely like marriage and fatherhood, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out who I am as other parts of me are getting more solidified. My photography is like a question mark to me in terms of like what I want it to mean or say about me and the world around me. And in a time when I feel like people are focused on a lot of noise, and I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I can bring some clarity to the world through photography. I don't know, photography. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know. I'm just kind of I'm in a contemplative space right now, as I'm spending less time in photography. My touch points with photography are so much less than they used to be. I'm more effective. I'm faster. I'm getting in and out of my work better. Like I don't get to interface with photography as much as I used to. So when I participate in it and how I choose to, it means more and more to me now.
Well, I'm guessing, and this might have to do with having children, you're also wondering
Number one.
what is my legacy as a
Mhm.
photographer, is kind of what you're thinking about. Like that's like you're talking about, like what impact am I leaving or what am I doing with my photography? And you're talking about like, oh, I'm not going to like create some like vastly new technical thing, like, but what am I leaving the world with the photos I take?
Yeah, that's another whole conversation. Legacy, what we're leaving behind, and the two things. I think the thing that came to mind most when I became a parent is now like my mortality is clearly in view. There's suddenly like there's an end to all this, that I never thought about death the way I do now, and then like thinking about leaving this planet too early, uh, and not getting to like be there for my children and my wife. Like that's just that weighs on me heavily now. So yeah, I guess legacy plays a part in that. And like, what are you leaving behind? And I don't know. I don't have these like self-aggrandizing delusions about where my place is in the world, but it does it. My world is now this where I'm at right now, and yeah, what I'm leaving behind is part of that too. So.
Well, you're wondering what impact
Whew.
you had,
Mhm.
you have, what do you, and I think that, it's interesting. Like, I lost both my parents in 2020, and I look back at like things like when people will go like, "Oh, when did you get your interest in photography?" And like both of my parents took pictures, but it was not their jobs. Like, my dad was a
Mhm.
fire investigator, and he was taking like very technical photos at work, but he was also like the family photographer, and he would, you know, take pictures that, he was very, I guess he was more interested in the emotional than technical when he would like take pictures of like holiday gatherings or whatever. Like, he was like, getting reactions out of people, and that's kind of become who I am as a photographer. Is like, like I prompt people to feel more comfortable in front of the cameras so that they forget about that I'm taking the picture, and they're themselves. Or also my mother, who took pictures to like, be part of her crafts. Like, she'd like get stuff developed and whatever. Like, it's that sort of like, I'd never thought about really there in that sense, like until they were gone, that they had that effect on me as far as like, what I do. And it took me back to a different place in viewing it from that perspective and going like, wow, they really did have uh, incredible impact on my photography career. When I just kind of like didn't think about that beforehand. I thought about like there were other things that, like we have similar senses of humor. We have like, all these other things that I thought like a more direct things, like, my upbringing, the connection that I had with them, and not, I think it's like by going through their stuff afterwards. They again reconnected me to their photography um, stuff that they'd done, how that, affected my life. Um, yeah, I still
What a
think about.
cool thing to leave behind. What a great thing to
Yeah,
to discover that.
it's a. I mean, I'm an introspective person, generally, but that sort of like, takes you off on a tangent and like makes you see your past differently and see like, how was that influenced by. Yeah, also, I'm a big fan of therapy, and I feel like most people should probably be in therapy at
Mhm.
some point in their lives, just to like learn how to deal with things emotionally. And I was having a lot of grief and like problems dealing with it, and in therapy, exploring those sort of thoughts, like, what is left of them, and like, and realizing that there's a lot of them in me in various ways, and like the things that they instilled in me. Um, and also just like the experience of being around them and the impact that they had on other people in like all these different ways, and finding those sort of like hidden things that I don't necessarily think of on a, or hadn't even like considered, and then later on being like, oh, I hadn't, like, this didn't hit me on a conscious level, that it had had such an impact. It's a I don't know, it is. I can go off for like days on like the emotional connection to photos and images and what it all like means to you in the long run, and like, these there's more than just like the moments of like going like, oh yeah, that was a great trip to the, you know to the beach or whatever, and just like diving into it and being able to have that. But also like, I've thought about this myself, like, what is my, and it becomes more of like the personal projects. Like, what are the things that I'm going to devote my time outside of what I'm getting paid to do? Because I mean, like, there's some people who are like, oh, well, you can make a book out of it, or you can do a gallery showing, or you can sell this, whatever. Like, who knows? There's no guarantee that it's ever going to make money. And I think that's one of the things you're talking about, like this capitalism and sort of, like, how am I rectifying these two things? It's sort of like, like, what am I doing that, I don't know, gives back or really shows more of who I am as a person and my perspective on the world, what I have to offer. It's a lot.
Hopefully, I'm hoping I find that. it's it's becoming my mission now is to make that happen. So I don't know. I'm very excited to see where my photography takes me in the next 5 years. Like where will I be? Like what kind of conversations am I going to be having 10 years from now? And hopefully I've been doing this for 30 years.
I think that's a great place for it. Hey, photographers, are you ready for a website glow up? Get supercharged with StyleCloud. StyleCloud offers beautifully designed, high-performing website templates built just for creatives like you. Whether you're showcasing weddings, portraits, or passion projects, you'll look as good online as your work does in print. Were you left high and dry and wondering what you were going to do with your Flow Themes website when the company shut down? No problem. StyleCloud makes migrating your Flow Themes site easy. Your content moves over, no stress, no mess. Plus, import your images directly from your PicTime galleries. No downloading, no re-uploading, just seamless integration and stunning design. Visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/stylecloud or visit the link in the episode notes. Save 15% when you use code nerdyphoto15 at checkout. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/stylecloud and use code nerdyphoto15. StyleCloud isn't just a template, it's a launch pad for your brand. Get started today. Photographers, are you ready to edit smarter, not harder? Meet Luminar Neo, the next-gen photo editing software that blends cutting-edge AI with total creative control. Remove backgrounds in a click, enhance landscapes and skies instantly, and make portraits pop with stunning edits. Luminar Neo's intuitive interface and advanced tools like layers, masking, and local adjustments make editing fast, fun, and seriously powerful. Available for Mac and Windows, it works as a standalone program or seamlessly as a plugin with Photoshop and Lightroom. Ready to bring your vision to life? Try Luminar Neo today by going to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Luminar and edit like never before. You can find that link in the episode notes. Just use our link and the code NERDYPHOTO to save $10 off your purchase or subscription at checkout. That's NerdyPhoto. Go to the link in the episode notes. Luminar Neo, your creativity supercharged.
Hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
Just to stop. I think that's a nice button on that. All right. So now we're going into our useless information for this episode. Justin, you probably know that Americans love hamburgers. So what's your guess on how far the number of hamburgers Americans consume would stretch if you put them side by side? In a year.
If I had to guess,
in a year. In 1 year.
In a year. Enough to go around the earth 13 times.
32.
32 times. Okay.
Yeah. Almost triple that. But yeah.
I'm contributing to that. We make burgers at the house once a week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of burgers, but it's also, they think like 32 times. Just, it's probably true. Justin, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. I'm glad that we were able to arrange this. I know your time is precious, especially with a newborn. Really, thanks a lot. Like, where can people find you? What else do you want to pitch to people? If there's anything you want to tell people about, go ahead.
Sure. You can find me at justinhaugen.com. It's HAUGEN.com. I'm on Instagram, at Photo Warlock, just like it sounds. And then you could find me on Facebook. I'm not on there as much these days. It's kind of noisy. I'm not having a good time on it anymore.
There's more ads than there are, and can't think of the word, like the suggested content than there are like posts from people you're friends with.
It's rough. If you're from Tucson, Arizona, you can join my group. It's TAP, Tucson Aspiring and Professional Photographers. We've got a nearly 5,000 member community, and that group runs without me being on Facebook much these days. It's a great group, great people, a lot of friendships on there. I've taken a break from conferences this year, but usually every year I'd like to teach at WPPI. I'm sponsored by Tamron Americas, and hopefully I'd like to be at WPPI again in this next fall, or next February, March, whenever they do it, next spring. So that's where I'd like to be again. So hopefully you'll see me at a conference near you.
Well, Justin, thanks a lot for being on, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Thanks, Casey.
Welcome back, listeners. Congrats on finishing the episode. Please go to the episode notes and follow my guest, Justin Haugen. And while you're following, be sure to follow at The Nerdy Photo on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Reddit. We have a lot of content coming out on the socials between episodes. And you know what? Golden and I just finished getting this cargo container into place, and I think it might be time for a little beverage break.
Snug?
No, I already told you. I'm not going to say it.
Snug?
Okay, fine. Pivot. Are you happy? Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.